Hi everyone, and welcome back to those of you who are returning for another speed build, and welcome to those who are new. So I decided to start making over all the Townie builds and the NPCs, and my last speed build was one of the starter homes in Willow Creek, and this one is of the Landgraab home in Oasis Springs. And it may seem like I probably should have started off with the Goth family home, but I kind of wanted to do something different. I wanted to start with the Landgraabs instead because I just really felt more drawn to their story and why they have a home that's so out of place in Oasis Springs. And I do have some thoughts about that, but in order to kind of speak on that, I do have to give a little context to why I'm saying that. So I kind of thought I'd give a little bit of history first and also acknowledge that I have only played Sims 3 and Sims 4, and the information I'm going to be speaking on is from a website I go to just to kind of get information on the Sims, so I'll link that in the description box below. But let's start off with the timelines. The timeline of events in the games goes Sims 3, then it goes to The Sims, and then Sims 2. Sims 4 takes place at the same time as Sims 3, but in an alternate universe. And that's possible if you really think about it because of the time machine and the time travel portal that is in The Sims 3. And we know that both of the Sims 3 and Sims 4 at the same time because both Nancy and Jeffrey, they start off as adults, and both of them with Jeffrey and Nancy being 18 days away from being elders in The Sims 3. And in The Sims 4, Jeffrey is 18 days away from being an elder, and Nancy is 16 days away from being an elder. And, you know, the Landgraab family is a wealthy family that resides in Sunset Valley in The Sims 3, Blue Water Village in The Sims 2, and then in Sims 4, it's Oasis Springs. Most of the family's wealth appears to come from property and real estate. The earliest mentioned Landgraabs are Demetrius and Dacian Landgraab. They are father and son, living in the medieval times in Sims Medieval Pirates and Nobles. And they reside in the city of Tredemy, which they own, and it's one of the richest cities. And although they're not necessarily on the family tree, it's pretty clear that they are part of the Landgraab ancestry. In fact, Dacian becomes involved with Misty Darktide, and although we do not see it or even have it confirmed, they could have went off to have a child. Then there's Admiral Landgraab without the E, because Dacian and Demetrius Landgraab had the E after the D for land, but Admiral Landgraab, he shows up without the E, and he's a pirate, and he's mentioned in several expansion packs. It makes sense that he would be the son, grandson, or great-great-grandson, whatever you want to say, of Daisy and Misty, as they were pirates themselves. And Admiral Landgraab is a pirate as well. The Landgraabs are known for taking things and doing whatever they need to do to accumulate their wealth, so maybe this is where the family trait started. We mainly hear about Admiral Landgraab in The Sims 3 World Adventures, as his home is in Chateau de Landgraab, a real estate in one of the adventure worlds. And at his estate, you will find a baby room and another room with 2 single beds. This implies that he had kids, at least to me, and at least one, I'm thinking more than likely 2. And again, remember that the Admiral was known for behavior that pretty much describes the Landgraabs, being either gold or money hungry. And this is important because we know that Gregory Landgraab, without the E, in The Sims 2 seasons, was mentioned as a humble school teacher who suddenly came into a large sum of money and became one of the wealthiest landowners around the turn of the century. And again, we have to keep in mind that Sims 3 is supposed to have been set in something like the 1950s. Probably doesn't seem that obvious, but definitely the 1950s. And we all know that when we say turn of the century, we tend to just think of the 1900s. But to go on about Gregory, there's some talk about how through some nefarious reasons, and probably even including foul play, he came into his money, or that's how his fortune was amassed. And maybe those theories weren't so far off, because maybe those nefarious reasons are that the money came from his ancestor, Admiral Landgraab, who died as a young adult. I think the Admiral wasn't married to the mother of his child or children, and possibly the mother either kept the children away from him, or at the very least probably wasn't even living in the home with him. Therefore, the money may have passed on to this child or children or descendants without the full knowledge of how it came to be. But then again, we all know when you are surrounded by people, which Admiral Landgraab was, he was connected to quite a few people, and he hired people to help him do all these different things. People talk. People will pass on that information. Now, again, remember Sims 3 came before Sims and Sims 2 in the in-universe timeline. Sims 3 had the time portals and time travel. I think going back in time or even using a time portal, even just once, created a rift where we now have the Sims 4. In fact, in my mind, I think some Sims, possibly Gregory Landgraab in Sims 3, went back in time to meet his ancestor that he was named after. Maybe shared a little bit too much, which altered the way the original Gregory lived his life. There were already some Landgraabs in Sims 3 who were on the wrong side of the law, like Magnus Landgraab, and there's also some type of insinuation that maybe another Landgraab, Todd Landgraab from Midnight Hollow, was going to go that way as well, as he had no skills, had a lot of money, and was pressured by his family to make something of himself. So with that being said, I think it's entirely possible the family went a different way before or with Gregory Landgraab, the humble school teacher that is. And that means that possibly the Landgraabs don't live in Sunset Valley, where they had a beautiful traditional house in a lush and green environment, but instead they live in a modern house in the desert. I think Oasis Springs is a mashup of Palm Springs, Arizona, and Las Vegas. And that's really interesting because Las Vegas is known for its mob connections, criminal ties in the history of the city. This makes sense because if you think about it, Sims 4, Nancy Landgraab is in the criminal career instead of the business career like in Sims 3. And she no longer closely resembles her mother like in Sims 3 as well. Jeffrey Landgraab changed too in that he no longer is a doctor, but is a detective instead. Although it's set up to create some drama that seemingly could ensue between Nancy being a criminal and Jeffrey being a detective, in my mind, we know that Jeffrey absolutely was enamored with Nancy. So I actually think it was a true love act by Jeffrey to take up the law enforcement career to protect her and her family, because he could probably manipulate some stuff for her. And we also know that Nancy originally wasn't going to be a criminal, according to what she says about the San Myshuno's Medina apartments. I'll link below where I'm getting what she said, but it was from when Sims 4 City Living came out. There was an interactive map where all these people in the game were commenting, and Nancy Landgraab is quoted to have been saying, "Back when I thought I might be an artist, before I saw the allure of capitalism, I must admit I lived a few good years in the Medina studio." I'm thinking that the pressure of having money, especially with her upbringing and possibly being cut off if she didn't conform, led her to give up her artistic dreams, unlike what you see in The Sims 3, to be the family business. Also, because the family is in the criminal field, there is no feud with the Alto family like in Sims 3. There's no Alto family even in The Sims 4 except for Holly Alto, who none of the Landgraab family in Sims 3 had a problem with. Instead, what we see is that the Landgraabs in Sim 4 have a feud with the Villarreal family, who also have connections to the criminal underworld. And in my mind, the head of the family, Jock, needs to watch out for Nancy because she's trying to work herself up the ranks, and her husband is going to protect her no matter what she does. This leads me to kind of talk about their house. I kept the house in a modern style as I want to flaunt their money and stand out with all the other luxury homes being in the Mediterranean style. I kept it so that it's still 2 bedrooms like the original house, no sign of where possibly another child named Johnny Zest may have lived. I do think Nancy and Jeffrey raised him, but I think he's a cousin, possibly a different version of Todd Landgraab, not Dudley Landgraab, that I mentioned before. And I just think that way because Todd also was trying to break away from the family as well. I think in Sims 4, what's different is that Johnny possibly changed his name and actually took that step that Todd did not to do what he wanted to do and got cut off. I did leave a small bathroom on the first floor for a butler, and that room off to the side of the front door is for the butler. I try to keep the home spacious like the original home. The top floor is for working out and hanging out like the original home. Although I did not decorate this home, this is a shell. I'm going to be keeping a painting easel in that room on the top floor just as a sign that Nancy has not completely given up on her artistic ways and that she would like to continue that. I did continue the opulence with the elevator, which I don't really expect to work. I couldn't even put 2 in there, but I did put it there for aesthetics. As both Nancy and Jeffrey are at a decent level for cooking, I put in a nice sized kitchen. I also gave them a garage with cars and a limo out on the driveway. Nancy even has a nondescript car for when she goes to work at night and needs to be low key to handle that dirty work. I'm keeping this as a shell, which is already up on the gallery. My gallery ID is in the description box below. I'm still decorating the house like I mentioned before, which is taking an incredibly long time, but that will go up at some point. So I will try to post when I do put it up. And if you like the makeover of this house and have suggestions on what house should be next, let me know in the comments below. And I would appreciate if you could like this video. That would help me a lot and make my day, as well as subscribe. And for the rest of this video, I am going to leave some nice soothing music.